Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Now, the next thing that I think we all really have to understand is the role that is played in all of this by war. A war is a contrived event. A war is not something that just happens. It's made by decision. People make those decisions, and they make those decisions for reasons that they do not tell you about.
And George Bush didn't make that decision. They knew it would be unpopular. They're going to put it all on him. He'll go retire in Dallas, and then they give us new birdcage liner.
That's correct. Now, again, if you go back in history over the last century, you see the critical role played by the big wars, what Patrick Buchanan in his new book, which I've been reading, calls the unnecessary wars. The purpose of those wars is to take down the nation states that are furthest ahead in establishing their own independence and their own national economic power. So World War I, you got rid of Germany. You got rid of Austria-Hungary. World War II, Britain came out of that without its empire, and so did France. Now what they're trying to do is to foment another world war, because there are two nations left standing. One is the United States, of course. The other one is Russia, because even though the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Russia is an inherently extremely powerful and advanced nation, both technologically, economically, in terms of resources, and Russia has come back very, very strongly. And if you read the financier press... And Mr.
Cook, stay there. Long segment, plenty of time to lay all this out when we get back. Just amazing overview we're getting here. I hope you appreciate the level of knowledge Mr. Cook has and how blessed we are to have him.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
Mr. Cook, Richard C. Cook, has written for some of the biggest publications in the country. He's written for the Washington Post, Space and Security News, the Houston Post. He was on the Presidential Commission to study many different areas. If I tried to go over his whole bio, it would blow our time. He, of course, was one of the senior analysts at the Department of the Treasury, and he is a syndicated columnist, an author, and we'll tell you about his website again before he leaves us. But if you can, sir, some stations carry the last 3 hours, not the first hour. Briefly recap how this is by design, predatory, with the global banks above and outside all the nations, wanting to implode the nation states and then put in an international order controlled by their financial control with rapid reaction military forces through NATO, the UN, and other mercenary forces to enforce their will. And then bring us back up to where we were in the 90s, and then into the current situation briefly, and then where we're going in the future.
Well, again, side by side with the development of the modern industrial economies, which we've seen over the last really couple hundred years, has been the growth of the private financial industry, which gradually has gained control of all of the economies of the world, particularly since the period beginning around the early 1900s with World War I. And it was really the financial elite that maneuvered the world into the series of wars that have taken place in the 20th century in order to take down any national economy that asserted itself as being independent of international finance. So we've seen the destruction of the Germans, of the Italians, later on in the 20th century, when Britain was lured into World War II, the British Empire collapsed, the French Empire collapsed, and it left the United States and Russia as the two standing nationalist powers, so-called superpowers. The Soviet Union collapsed in '91. It's now coming back, and the United States really is the only remaining nation that has had the sense of national identity, the economic strength to oppose the bankers. But since the 1970s, through deregulation, through buying off of politicians, through what I call the policies of the three amigos, the Kissingers, the Volckers, the Greenspans, creating all of these financial bubbles, running up huge amounts of debt, exporting United States jobs and industries overseas. Now the United States itself is threatened with its very existence. And the way that the financial elite has traditionally sought to take down nations has been through warfare. And right now, we are being driven into a very precarious situation that very well could lead to World War III, and that would be a war between the United States on one side and Russia, probably China on the other side, where the last powerful national economies would be totally destroyed, and the international financiers could move in at that point and establish their one world headquarters, as it were, and control everything through the power of debt and the power of money.
Now stay there. Stay there. For listeners that just joined us, this is not some wild flight of imagination. This is all in hundreds of think tank documents. We've read them here. I've made films. We've written books. We've had endless guests on covering it. Top guests, heads of business schools, Nobel Prize winners. This is what is being engineered. And this goes for every military man, every police officer. It's us against them. And they stage terror attacks to try to get you to, as Zbigniew Brzezinski said in the Grand Chessboard and in his new book, to get you to rally around their international elite, and so they can carry out their policies that are really directed against you. They primitively give you a perceived threat to your tribe, use your nationalism that's healthy, but a false nationalism so they can then direct you in wars that actually destroy your treasury further, in debt to them, destroy our name worldwide. I mean, you'll see Rupert Murdoch in newspapers he owns demonizing us overseas and then saying we're good over here.